Co here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got a trillion, gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
You know, whatever it is.
On Ding Dong.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Gangster Chronicles is a weekly podcast hosted by former gangbanger and inmate James McDonald, rapper MC8, and myself, Norm Steele. Weekly we get together and have conversations with everyone from former gangsters, drug dealers, and bank robbers to police, rappers, and politicians. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is a glimpse into a world where society is rarely allowed access. Nothing is ever scripted and it's 100% real. We don't glorify the gang, we simply educate and inform the world on what goes on in the streets of urban America. Gangster Chronicles podcast is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
Let's get this party started.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Wednesday live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We are on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I just noticed this 30 seconds before we went to the air. It's not like there's not enough blue versus red battling in America. Joy and I did not plan this.
No.
I swear to God.
I did wear blue yesterday.
And I almost always wear blue, and we're not trying to send a message. We swear to God, 30 seconds ago.
I certainly am not. But you know what? Red is my color.
And blue
so
is mine.
I will not allow that to be taken from me.
That's right. Listen, that's right.
I'm going to keep it.
So it's good to have you, Joel Klatt, in an hour. It's a lot of anxiety in America, so let's just take a deep breath, let the votes get counted for the next 36 hours, and we land where we land. So we are, speaking of tabulating things and calculating things, we're halfway through the NFL season. Halfway through. And I do believe if you're halfway through anywhere, if you're halfway through a school year as a college student, you kind of know what you're going to get for a grade, you got a good feeling for it. You know, if you're halfway through your first year of marriage, you got a feeling it's going well, it's not. Like halfway through is something, it's substantial. And let's have some fun this morning. Because I don't think we're going to see wild variations in the NFL. Some, but what we know right now who's really good, we know who's really bad, and then you're fighting over, teams that are probably not going to win the Super Bowl, but may or may not make the playoffs. So this morning, let's predict, as of what we have, the votes that are counted this morning, let's predict what's going to happen in the playoffs. So let's go to the AFC first. The number 1 seed is Pittsburgh, Kansas City, 2 Buffalo, 3 Tennessee, 4 Baltimore, 5 Colts, 6 Cleveland, 7. Current AFC playoff matchups. Cleveland at Kansas City. I said I thought Cleveland would make the playoffs. They are as of this morning. I would take the Chiefs at home. Colts at Buffalo is an interesting one. One of the toughest playoff battles to measure. Something's not right in Buffalo. Josh Allen is struggling. Cold weather's coming. Even though it's at Buffalo, I think the Colts offensive line would be the difference. They have a better defense, a better O-line. I'd take the Colts in a low, ugly weather, low-scoring game. And I would take the Titans over the Ravens. I think it's a good matchup. I think the coach, Mike Vrabel, everybody's allowed to have a 2 and 3 week ugly stretch in the NFL. The Titans did upgrade their defensive secondary at the trading deadline. I take the Titans. Steelers get the wild card bye. Next round of the AFC playoffs, Colts at Pittsburgh. We all know that Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers has a fairly low ceiling. Pittsburgh really doesn't. They can drop a 35 burger on you at any point. Pittsburgh at home may or may not have any fans there. I take the Steelers off a bye, the number 1 seed. Titans at Kansas City. Again, I think the Titans match up with Kansas City, but I'm taking the Chiefs here. I really do believe the untold story of Kansas City going back to week 12 of last year, their defense is top 5. Chiefs defense really good. Then we go to the AFC Championship, and I would take Kansas City at Pittsburgh again. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in a big spot, details buttoned up over Big Ben and Tomlin, though I like the Steelers' front 7. Pittsburgh lets everybody stay close. Kansas City can blow your doors off at any time. I take the Chiefs representing the AFC in the Super Bowl as of this morning. I don't think it's any wild speculation. I think most people think that, but that's how I think it would transpire. Let's go over to the NFC, where the top teams now, Seattle's a 1, they'd get the bye, Tampa 2, Green Bay 3, Philly 4, New Orleans 5, Arizona 6, LA Rams. First round Rams at the Buccaneers. I do not think this is a good matchup for the Rams. Jared Goff under pressure can struggle. I would take the Buccaneers in a rout. Arizona at Green Bay. This actually I like Green Bay, and kind of comfortably. Green Bay struggles with teams that get in the face of Aaron Rodgers. The Cardinals' pass rush is spotty. Their defense is susceptible to big plays. If Devontae Adams is healthy, I'd take Green Bay here by about 10. Saints at Philadelphia, I don't buy the Saints. It'll be in cold weather. They don't throw the ball downfield much anyway. I don't like their defense this year. I love Philadelphia getting healthier, better offensive line, a quarterback that can knife that ball through cold weather. You'll have both Goddard and Zach Ertz back and Miles Sanders. I'd take Philadelphia to win the game over the Saints, and I feel strongly about it. The next round of the NFC playoffs, Philadelphia at Seattle, they will have met their match. Seattle's a better football team. Carlos Dunlap, Jamal Adams, if the running backs are healthy, I think this is pretty easy for Seattle. Philadelphia feels like they can win a division and win a home playoff game, and that's about it. And I think people in Philly would acknowledge that. Green Bay at Tampa. This feels like the Niners at Green Bay last year. This is a bad matchup for Green Bay. It is a bad matchup. Teams with good running backs get leads on Green Bay, and they chill them out. And last year, San Francisco played them twice. If they'd played them 3 times, they'd have beaten them 3 times. Tampa's a lousy matchup for Green Bay. They put pressure on the quarterback. They put great protection around Brady. A lot of weapons. Packers too Devontae Adams reliant. They'd roll coverage, double him. I like Tampa. Then in the NFC Championship, Tampa at Seattle. It is going to be cold, wet, and windy. Meaning Antonio Brown, good luck with a deep ball. The weather will be built for Seattle. They'll have a semi-pass rush with Carlos Dunlap and Jamal Adams. If their running backs are healthy, the feet of Russell Wilson and Chris Carson and running the ball will play keep away. Listen, I grew up there. That's going to be gross weather in Seattle. I ran half marathons in November in Seattle 4 times. It was brutal. This is January Seattle weather for a warm weather team. I'll take Seattle, and then I think Seattle faces the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl with the 2 best football players in the world, Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes, and believe it or not, I would take the better defense, the Kansas City Chiefs, to win the Super Bowl. Joy Taylor, thoughts?
I don't hate it. I think I would go with the Steelers, but I'm going to be a homer in that spot.
All right.
But yeah, that would be an incredible Super Bowl.
Oh Lord, it would be unbelievable.
The 2 best quarterbacks in the league.
And 2 great coaches, by the way. One an offensive genius, one a defensive genius. Also, just think of all the playmakers in that. Russell Wilson, Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, like huge playmakers. The Kansas City, you've got Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, Cheetah, one of the better offensive lines. It would be like 9 to 10.
It would be an offensive showcase
with a better defense making plays late to win.
And an unbelievable story for Seattle getting back to a Super Bowl after we pretty much called the end of that that dynasty when the Legion of Boom went away.
All right. So
tell
me what you think. I know it's a day most of you watch election stuff, but just tell me what you think on Twitter. So, much like our elections, sometimes stories take a while to develop. States take a while to develop, right? Nobody's talking about this. So, the current draft order in the NFL, Jets, Giants, Jags, Miami, Dallas. Now, I just want you to look at that and let it bake. If you're driving in your car today, I do not believe the Jets have a win on their schedule. The Giants get better every week. They're not going to remain at number 2. They're not. They're going to win a couple games. The Jags would like to win games because their GM and coach would like to keep their jobs. But I don't think they'll win a lot, maybe one. The Dolphins have the Texans pick, but Deshaun Watson's going to win 2 to 3 games because he's got a great left tackle. They didn't trade Will Fuller. They're going to win a couple games. And then the Cowboys at 5. Go look at their schedule today. Outside of Washington on Thanksgiving, find me the win. The Giants in Houston have no incentive to lose. The Giants are not going to give up on Daniel Jones for the second or third best quarterback in this draft. Joe Judge is trying to create a culture like Miami last year. He's got no incentive to lose. And he knows they're way better than the Jets, so they have no chance to get the, transcendent talent, Trevor Lawrence. So the Giants are playing to win. They could have won this week if not for a call. Giants will win games, and Houston will too. The Jets and the Jags have an incentive to lose, but the Jags front office and coach would love to win a game or two to retain their jobs. It comes down to Dallas. I believe the Jets, the Jags, and Dallas are going to have the top 3 picks in this draft. That's the top. All of them, right? We think, the Jets yesterday said, we're not taking Trevor Lawrence. We're with Sam Darnold, believe it or not. The Jags will take a quarterback. But if the Jets don't, Dallas at 2-14. And again, I think the Jags are going to win a game. Dallas is not far off from the number 2 pick in this draft. Justin Fields. And I don't know if you've watched a lot of Justin Fields, but last year Justin Fields had 41 touchdowns and 3 picks. This year he's got 6 touchdowns, no picks. That's 47 touchdowns and 3 picks. He's better this year than last year. Are you sure Dallas doesn't make that move? Now listen, I said this before. Dak is the Dallas media is a little in the tank for Dak. They're a little in the tank because he's very good to the media. He's a very good kid. They're in the tank. And they kept coming on this show for a year saying, Dak's going to get a contract. And I kept saying, Jerry pays everybody. Why is not he paying Dak? I don't understand it. And they never paid him. And they assured us they were going to pay Dak. And they never did. And now the Dallas media remains kind of in the tank for Dak because, why? Because that injury was brutal. He's off the field crying. He's an easy guy to root for. Justin Fields is available. You gonna tell me? Remember, Jerry already feels smart with Dak. You got him for a 4th rounder, he got you to the playoffs. Jerry's getting close to 75, 80 years old. Are we sure they'd pass on Justin Fields, who would be a number 1 pick in any other draft that didn't have Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck in it? Are we sure? You go look at that Dallas schedule. I don't see a win outside of maybe Washington. And again, I think Washington thinks they can win the division. And I think Washington players like their coach. And I don't like Kyle Allen, but he's better than who Dallas is starting week after week after week. And Thanksgiving's around the corner. I'm just saying, I was assured by the Dallas media. They were going to give Dak a long-term contract. And I am assured now by the Dallas media, Jerry loves him. Justin Fields is going to potentially be available. The Jets are the first pick. I think it's Dallas and the Jags for the 2nd pick. I don't know. He is an A to an A+ prospect. From a traditional power who's got 47 touchdowns and 3 picks and looks better this year than last, and last year he looked great. He was the number 1 high school quarterback in the country. He went to Georgia, then he transferred to Ohio State. I mean, he is big. He's got an arm. He can move. Supposed to be a great kid. I don't know. If I'm getting close to 80 years old and own an NFL team, that whole loyalty thing, that maybe works in my 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I don't know if it works when I get close to 80. And we know Jerry likes offense. I'm just saying. The Dallas media loves Dak, and I get it. I don't know how you don't have a meeting over Justin Fields. Like 6 of them. I don't know how you don't consider it. Dak could still get a job. But we're not talking about this. Jets, Dallas Jags in this draft is incredibly possible. Incredibly possible. because I don't see the wins on Dallas' schedule. All right, coming up next, finally, executives multiple around the NFL this morning are acknowledging something's up with Bill Belichick. He's tanking. They're finally admitting it. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hey there, it's Mango, host of Part-Time Genius, co-founder of Mental Floss, and like many of you, I'm one of the 21 million people that have picked up gardening in the past 6 months. That's why I'm hosting the brand new podcast, Humans Growing Stuff, brought to you by iHeartMedia and your friends at Miracle Grow. Join me on a green adventure as we talk with experts, friends, and surprise guests, and hear what gardening means to them. Listen to Humans Growing Stuff on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I knew they were going to kill him.
Police and FBI.
This is Fight Night, a new podcast from iHeartRadio. This is the story about two guys from opposite sides of the street. A hustler blamed for robbing the most dangerous gangsters in the country.
This is like issued a death warrant for me for something that I don't even know anything about.
And the cop who tried to save his life.
They thought he had robbed the deadliest man in this country. Guys who would not hesitate to blow your head off.
In 1970, Muhammad Ali triumphantly returned to the ring. At the hustlers' party that followed, gangsters from around the country were robbed of $1 million. This story from Atlanta, Georgia, has been reported for 50 years. But now, for the first time, you're going to hear what really happened from the people who lived it. Listen and follow Fight Night on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Time to change up your wireless provider. Pure Talk USA, unlimited talk and text, 2 gigs of data, $20 a month. Grab your mobile phone, dial pound 250, and say my name. Joel Klatt, top of next hour. So, listen, I got a bunch of kids. Stepkids, biological kids, 6. And when you do, you have to watch them. Because kids are going to do things. I did things. Joy did things that parents don't know. So I'm not going to catch my kids doing everything they shouldn't be doing. So what I do instead of spying on them is I watch their behavior. I check their grades. If people start doing things that is not in their normal behavior, I am suspicious. Your wife starts coming home later and later. She didn't for 22 years. Something's going on. Same for husband suddenly. I've got a lot of work at the office this year. And he starts losing weight, getting in better shape. Be suspicious. It's okay. It's okay to be suspicious. Bill Belichick has spent the last 7 months doing stuff he's never done. And the fans totally get it, and the media doesn't. By the way, we're seeing some of this during our election. The media's got a blind spot. And Americans have been telling us, this puppy's going to be close. Sometimes the people are right. And the people know what Belichick's doing, and the media has a blind spot. He is too smart to want to... No, he's too smart to want to be 7-9, 8-8, 9, and 7 for 5 years. So Belichick, now the league is catching on. This is why I predicted they would go 5-11. I said he's rebooting. And he's going to be very coy. And he doesn't want people to think he's doing this, right? So he's doing things that he's never done before. Complimenting Cam Newton constantly. He is really putting in the work. Even yesterday. To give the appearance they are fighting for wins. He adds a couple of irrelevant players at the trading deadline. He didn't sell everybody off. Giving the appearance this is no restructuring. We're going all the way. 4 different executives and coaches are now seeing it. Said a former head coach, after Belichick went on and on and on and on and on and on and on a couple days ago about the salary cap and started talking. He goes, I saw that and thought, why is he out there? Bill would never put anything like that out there about the salary cap. All of a sudden it's out there, something's weird. The fans have seen this for months. Somebody else said, an executive at The Athletic, it seemed very un-Belichickian to say what he's saying about the cap. He's the coach and GM. You made all the decision unless there's a veiled message which would make you think about what they've spent. A third person, anonymous. I've always wondered if they just decided to tank this year, especially once they had the opt-outs. The media has a blind spot. A fourth executive. My hunch is Belichick would rather tear it down and rebuild instead of trying to hang on and go 9-7. When people start doing things they've never done, be suspicious. Suddenly Bill Belichick, you guys should opt out. Take care of your families. At New England, it's all about family first, football second. Oh, that's adorable. Now adding irrelevant players at the deadline. Cam Newton compliments constantly. Never gave Brady one in 20 years. Didn't try to re-sign anybody. We're in cap hell. We can't. Talking about cap stuff that he's never talked about ever. Mid-season press conferences. On and on and on. Folks, the media has blind spots. We're seeing it with the election. Okay? The public told us a lot of Trump fans going to be close. The fans spotted it. The people. And the fans are telling you. They've been on this since week 7. Brady's gone. This is a rebuild year. You got 3 A-plus quarterback prospects. I'm not saying they're going to get one, but finally people are catching on. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So, overall, pretty quiet trade deadline yesterday.
It was. I'm not sure if we should be surprised or not. I thought Stefan Gilmore and the Raiders. I don't know why that to me was the move of the day. They're a cornerback. They've beaten the Chiefs. We know they can beat anybody. They need a corner. I thought that just felt like, and they've hit on so many good draft picks. They're getting so much production in Las Vegas without paying a lot of these guys any money.
The asking price was
rich.
A bit high, though. And the Packers were reportedly looking at Texans wide receiver Will Fuller at the trade deadline, but no deal was made. There were reports that there were disagreements within the organization about whether adding a top-end receiver in the short term was worth the price, but Matt LaFleur shut those rumors down.
We were in communication, I know, but I don't know if anything ever got that serious. I have no idea where anything like that would ever come from. We're in constant communication. We're on the same page, and there is no truth to that. I promise you that.
I've never seen somebody look more different without a mask and with a mask. That does not look like Matt LaFleur at all.
I didn't notice.
That's an intern for the Packers. That's not even their that doesn't look anything like Matt LaFleur.
He's sending out a body double?
Yeah.
Well, look, we all wished that the Packers had been more aggressive about this in the draft and were more aggressive about this overall for Aaron Rodgers' sake, but they are 8th in receiving yards per game, 14th in total receiving yards with 1,948, but they've only played 7 games. Devontae Adams is 20th in the NFL with 502 total receiving yards, missing 2 games.
Yeah, he gets hurt.
Second in the league with 100.4 receiving yards per game. So when he is available, he's obviously a big target.
He's huge, but he gets hurt.
I think it is with the Packers what you said at the beginning of the season, what you were saying all year last year, what I didn't see with them last year, but I'm now seeing with them this year, which is it's not Aaron Rodgers' fault that the Packers can't get back to the Super Bowl.
He's doing great. One bad game, he's great.
He's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be consistent. Everybody has bad games. Tom Brady has bad games. Like that is what it is. It's what professional sports is. You're not going to be amazing every single day, but he's pretty close to it. And they did not have a good draft. I just every day that goes by with the Packers, I get more and more confused about the Jordan Love move.
The number 2 pick was no day at the beach either.
I didn't love it to begin with.
He's not close to good enough. He's not close to their first 2 running backs.
They just didn't make a concerted effort to fix what the problem was last year. And it seems like this year it's the same issue, which is if you go up against a running team, you're going to have a problem. If you go up against a physical team, you're going to have a problem. Obviously, San Francisco's run game last year was incredible, and they were a big physical team. They made it to the NFC Championship game and had an amazing season and got tore up in the NFC Championship game. So you should be making moves in the offseason to improve whatever it was you couldn't get over in that game, right? Because you have to win that game to get to the Super Bowl, to have an opportunity to win it. So, just can't put it on Aaron Rodgers. They weren't aggressive at the trade deadline. I don't know what it is Maybe they just felt like that's not the issue for them. But if that's not the issue for them, shouldn't you be more aggressive to fix the issues that you do have?
They need playmakers on defense. They need another playmaker on offense. It's like that's what drafts are for. That's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did in free agency in the draft. They went got like Antonio Winfield. The Winfield safety's a dramatic playmaker. They went Antoine Winfield. They went and got AB's a dramatic playmaker. Gronk in the red zone's a dramatic upgrade. They went and got dramatic playmakers who change games and moments. Green Bay didn't do any of that in the draft.
But they kind of always
That's what
do that. So Antonio Brown was officially reinstated this week and is expected to play on Sunday when the Bucs take on the Saints, which is already a big game. And he's been getting quality time with his quarterback. Tom Brady said he invited AB to live with him while he gets settled in Tampa.
We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the years, so he's just getting settled, and I know he's looking for places, but it's just nice to be able to have him around, and, we're getting to work, and he likes to be integrated into what we're doing, and big transition for him moving across the state and really not knowing anyone, so, again, just trying to be a great teammate and help someone out, is a friend of mine.
Well, Tom's going to try and make it work. Tom has something to win here. Games.
Yes, and we know that Tom and AB have a relationship, which is why all that nonsense last week about how this was not a Tom Brady decision.
Tom told him, listen, you get AB, I'll let him live with me. He did in Foxborough as well, or Boston. So it's like, listen, I'll make it work. This was always one of these kind of like high fives, not signed on paper. You go get AB, I'll make it work. And by the way, he vouched for him in New England and was pissed when New England let him go. So this is Tom's put a lot of time and equity into this, and there's a reason for it. He's Randy Moss.
When Antonio Brown is able to play and when things are working, he's incredible and a Hall of Fame level receiver.
Oh yeah.
When?
No. We'll see how it's gonna be fun. I like the drama.
I'm very interested in it. But at the end of the day, this is why I'm not buying anything that Arians was saying about how this was not Tom Brady's decision. It wasn't Tom Brady's decision, but he's living in Tom Brady's house. Can I live in Tom Brady's house? No. So it was Tom Brady's decision. Right. Like, it's fine. If it doesn't work out, I don't think anyone's going to freak out because it's on Antonio Brown. Like, obviously people are trying to help him. Clearly Tom Brady's making a concerted effort to get him back into the league. He clearly vouched for him. He's living in his house. So if it doesn't work, I don't think it's going to be one of those things where there's some huge wave of backlash or anything like that, because at this point, like, this is Antonio Brown's choice.
If it doesn't work out, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans go, all right, throw to us more. So it's not
and you cut him.
It's not really a position of need. It is icing on a really good cake. They don't need a receiver. It's just like, now who do we guard? You can't double Evans. Now it's a nightmare.
I think it was partly because Tom Brady obviously has a close relationship with him, and the injuries provided an opportunity to get him in there. So it's been a miserable season for the Jets, who are in line to get the first pick in the draft and take Trevor Lawrence. But GM Joe Douglas is still backing Sam Darnold as their quarterback of the future.
I think you see the flashes of what he can be, and they're really special. Let's not forget that Sam's a 23-year-old quarterback that is maybe one of the toughest quarterbacks I've ever been around. So, no, I'm very excited about Sam. I have no problem saying that he is our best quarterback and our quarterback for the future.
Drive that trade price high.
Right now, the Jets have 2 firsts, a second, 2 thirds, and could end up having 2 fourths via the Giants. That's 7 potential great picks. If you make a deal with somebody like the Jags for Trevor Lawrence, you could end up having 3 first-round picks in this draft. The Jags have 2.
If you keep Sam Darnold.
You could keep Sam Darnold, say, Jags, you give us your pick, because the Jags have 2.
So that they move up in the draft.
That's right. So the Jets could, if they kept Darnold, just this year, could have the 3rd pick, the 21st pick, and the 31st pick. That's just this year for Trevor Lawrence, because you can get a couple of 1s, a couple of 2s, a player, if the Jags have any left. I think they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, but you can make deals with this.
Do you go to Jacksonville if you're Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I think you do. They're going to have a ton of cap space and a bunch of draft.
Over the Jets?
Well, I think he's a good kid. He'll just go where he should go.
I think he will too.
I'm not a good kid. I would say I'm not going to the Jets.
I think that the Jets is a much better situation than Jacksonville. I've seen more from the Jets in the last 10 years than I have from Jacksonville. Yeah. And they have, as you mentioned, a tremendous amount of picks. And they do have some talent, and they're going to have a new head coach. It's just, man, this draft is going to be
amazing.
I know you love the draft.
I love it.
And I like the draft, too. Not as much as you do. You love the draft, but this is going to be a love draft for me. Yeah. It's going to be amazing.
Enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Live
I
News.
swear to God, we're not sending a message. Me wearing blue, Joy wearing red. I swear it is.
Colin looks good in blue. I look good in red. I also felt like wearing a sweater today. It's kind of chilly.
It is. That's why I wore a sweater. It's chilly.
Yes.
Peter Schrager joining us, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. We're not telling you who to vote for. We don't have an opinion. We just look like we're on political coverage today wearing blue and red. Oh, look at that! Schrager. Look at this. Everybody in America is going, oh boy, we're in big trouble. Let's start with this. I thought the Packers with a 37-year-old quarterback in 1 month should have rolled the dice on Fuller. You tell me, was it close? Were there arguments in the building? What happened?
No, look, the truth of the matter was the Texans weren't willing to trade Fuller for anything short of a first or second round pick, and the Packers just couldn't give away that draft capital. I was surprised the Texans weren't sellers, to be honest. They're a team that's got one win. They have no first or second round draft picks this year, and the Texans also have guys like Stills and Cooks, and of course Randall Cobb, who used to play with Rodgers in Green Bay. But when it came down to it, the Packers weren't willing to mortgage the future because they feel like Allen Lazard is coming back to the team. He was having a great season before he got injured, and they can win with this receivers group. I think if you watch that game, it wasn't the receivers who cost them the victory in Minnesota. It was the fact that Dalvin Cook is still running and probably has about 700 yards and wouldn't be stopped unless the game just finally ended. So the defense needs to get right, and Will Fuller wasn't going to fix the defense one way or the other. Packers end up staying where they are, keeping their draft picks, and hoping that it's enough with what they've got at the receiver position to get them through the rest of the season.
So I threw this out there. Dallas, I can't see a W on their schedule outside of Thanksgiving, Washington, and I don't think they're winning that game. I don't. I look at that O-line, I look at the Washington football team's D-line, and I'm saying to myself, Jets are the worst team in the league. Jags second. Giants are too good. They'll win games. Giants are getting better every week. They got the right coach. They're going to win a couple games. I think the first couple draft picks are going to be, and I think Jacksonville's going to win a game or two. I think we could go Jets and Dallas. How do they not look at Justin Fields? Jerry's going to be 80 here quick. This is an A-plus prospect, Schrags. 47 touchdowns, 3 picks in 2 years at Ohio State. Don't they have to look at him?
Would you argue that Dak Prescott's value has never been more present or more obvious than this season?
That's right.
With this team completely crumbling. So would you not argue that maybe Dak should get that long-term contract? I've never been a Dak guy. I'm not the one who's always, pay that man. He deserves more. This team is by far the worst team in the NFC right now, and they're an unwatchable team, which is Jerry Jones's worst nightmare, to be unwatchable. For the fact that Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels are cracking jokes about them live on the broadcast for the entire country to see, that is Jerry's worst scenario. He'd be fine going 2-14 if they were fun and putting up points, but to also be unwatchable is what's troubling. I think Dak's value is more evident now than ever before. So, yes, they have to look at the quarterback spot. I also would say with that number 2 overall selection and all the other teams that might need a quarterback, could you trade that pick for a bounty of selections and maybe build around Dak Prescott and just say, you know what, let's pay Dak and let's just have our quarterback? Because here's the other thing, Colin. They don't have offensive linemen. They don't have linebackers, all that stuff. They don't have a leader. Like, Amari Cooper has 1 catch, 5 yards, says 7 words in NFL week to week at practice. Like, he's not a talker. Ezekiel Elliott is not a leader. Sean Lee's in and out of the lineup. They don't have a leader. Dak Prescott was a leader, and he lifted all boats, and I think it's obvious now how much they missed Dak. So I'm actually going to go against the grain on this one and say maybe you just pay Dak, you have your quarterback, and you build around him and say, okay, let's fill in all the holes that we're evidently missing this season.
It's a good take. Tua. A story came out, Joey and I had been on this for a while, that we thought with Herbert coming out and Burrow looking so good, and with the impatience now in the NFL with the Kyler Murray situation in Arizona, that they got Houston's pick, and Miami's like, listen, we want to watch him for 9 games. If it doesn't work, we got a top 5 pick. We may just move off him. 8 first downs. What's the talk around the league on Tua in that situation in Miami?
To be determined. That was not a Tua win last week. Yes, they won with Tua, and he had a really nice touchdown pass to Parker, but that was one that was Jakeem Grant on a punt return. That was Andrew Van Ginkel returning that fumble all the way. It was defense was fantastic last week, and special teams helped. So the future is in Tua's hands, and I know the owner is very excited about having Tua as his quarterback. I know the fan base is as energized as they have been since maybe the Dan Marino era, and Joy could tell you this better than anybody. When Dolphins fans finally have something to rally around and galvanize, it is an exciting team to follow. I'd say right now it's Tua, but I don't put him in that Burrow conversation. Burrow's been outstanding. Justin Herbert's been marvelous. Tua hasn't shown us anything yet, so the jury is still out. I think this division is very winnable, and if Tua can get that job done, you better believe that number 1 Dolphins jersey will be one of the most highest-selling jerseys across the league.
Joe Douglas, we both like him. We both talked to him before. He said, Sam Darnold's my quarterback. I'd like to believe him, but Trevor Lawrence, New York media, he did make a good point. He's like, Darnold's like 23 years old. We haven't given him anything. When he said, Sam's our future, did you buy it, or are you a little cynical?
I buy it for now. I don't know. Look, here's the craziest thing about the Jets right now. The first few weeks of the season, the New York tabloids were going nuts. You got to fire Gase. You got to do this. The local radio, you'd listen. When you're not listening to Colin Cowherd, you're listening to the local guys, and they're freaking out. They're losing games now by 20, 30 points. It's not even a ripple. Like, they're not even... People have been apple picking, and now they're Thanksgiving shopping, and now they're talking about the election. Like, the Jets don't even have any footprint in the sports media landscape, and that is bad. So when you say that Darnold's your future, it's kind of like, all right, at least Trevor Lawrence gives this impression that there's a future that's different than the current. And I know Darnold is not to blame here. I truly don't believe Darnold's the problem. He's got nothing around him, one of the worst offensive lines the last 2 seasons, and just a culture that is in the dumps right now in that building. But it's hard for me to say if they have the number 1 overall pick, they're not going to look long and hard at Trevor Lawrence, who gets Andrew Luck-like comparisons.
Good stuff, buddy. Peter Schrager, wearing blue. I'm wearing blue. Joy's red. We're not making a political statement, I swear to you. It's just what we had available. We're guys. It's what we had available in the closet.
That's all. Look, I'm wearing a fleece sweatshirt here. I'm not John King in a suit and tie making a statement here. Steve Kornacki. No, I'm good.
All right, buddy.
I'm in a closet over here.
Good seeing you, man.
Thanks, Colin.
Shrakes. He's one of the most connected guys I've ever met in this business. All right, coming up next, James Harden going to the Sixers. That's what they want, and we'll talk about that. But first, A, B, what to expect in Tampa. I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen because we have history on it. That's next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Matrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California. She had been arrested at a beachside restaurant for failing to pay a tab and taken to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station.
She's not from that area, and I would hate to wake up to a morning report. Lost somewhere with her head chopped off.
The police released her just after midnight, with no car, no cell phone, no money.
She doesn't know the area. She's never been in your area. Well, I think she's suppressed. That's what has me more.
That's worried you more than just her. Okay.
Matrice disappeared into the darkness and was never seen alive again. I'm Catherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Matrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades. They last 2 times longer than other blades. They're available only at Walmart. They have Quad Tech, meaning they got silicone. Repels water, snow, ice, and all that stuff. Good to have you in today. So Tampa Bay this week's going to play Antonio Brown. Certainly in the next couple of weeks he's in. And, you know, the speculation is what's going to happen. Well, we have a track record. Brady's very much like LeBron. He trusts late in games and in the red zone. He's loyal to those he trusts. Tom is not subtle about it. So Randy Moss was in New England with Tom Brady. They played in 37 games. He averaged over a touchdown a game. Mike Evans has played 8 games with Tom. They have 7 touchdowns. Antonio Brown played 1 game with Brady in New England. He had a touchdown. If you go to Gronk in his prime, Welker in his prime, Moss in his prime, Mike Evans in his prime, AB in New England, and Edelman in his prime, in the red zone, Tom will be loyal to his stars, not even to a fault. He doesn't even hide it. He's very much LeBron. If LeBron trusts you, D-Wade, Kyrie, AD, late in games, he ignores everybody. LeBron's just going to go to the guys he trusts. LeBron tries to be a good teammate for 3.5 quarters. You get in late in the games, this year in the final, it's just, I'm going to go find AD. And that's what Brady does. So nothing against Chris Godwin, but you watch what's going to happen now in Tampa. AB, Mike Evans, and Gronk are going to get all those red zone looks. And you're going to get now I don't think you'll be average a touchdown a game because I just think there's just too much talent. But Brady's always been, very direct on this. I can spread the ball around all game. Red zone, get close. I'm going to Gronk. I'm going to Edelman. I'm going to AB. I'm going to Moss. He is all in on the guys he trusts. Bruce Arians on AB now, Buck.
Yeah, it really depends how the game goes. If we're successful with the package that we put him in, we're probably running more. He'll have his role, and it could be 10 plays. It could be 35 plays. I wouldn't anticipate 60 plays for sure, but we'll just see how it goes.
Joel Klatt next hour, Aqib, Talib too. So here's a little NBA news. Daryl Morey, know him, like him. He is now the Philadelphia 76ers GM. And we've been saying this for the last 3 years. Embiid Simmons doesn't work. And everybody in Philadelphia is walking on eggshells. What do we do? I don't know. I just don't get it. This is the way it is. In the NBA, name the duo that play together, and in year 3 or 4, it finally gels. That's never happened. You can tell within 20 games. D-Wade, LeBron, 20 games in, it works. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, first year, it works. And you can also tell when it doesn't work. Charles Barkley, Pippen in Houston, took about 10 games. That ain't gonna work. Magic and Kareem, the rookie and the iconic skyhook. It worked instantly. Embiid Simmons, it doesn't work. And Daryl Morey, according to reports, is pursuing James Harden of Houston. That would work. Why? Because Harden can shoot threes outside and Embiid can dominate inside. Ben Simmons can't shoot, so Simmons and Embiid do not work. Harden and Embiid would be great. It would be fantastic. A rim protector and a dominating Shaq-like interior performer. And James Woods shoots threes, step back. That works. So super aggressive wins. This is why you see this in the NFL and you see it in the NBA sometimes and in baseball. If you bring in a new GM, he can just blow stuff up. He's not protecting his picks. And in Philadelphia now for several years, everybody's like, well, somebody's connected to Embiid and Simmons and everybody's walking on eggshells. Morey's like, no, let's blow it up. Doesn't work. Thank you, Daryl Morey. Now, I don't know how they're going to get James Harden. I would never give James Harden up if I'm Houston. No way I'm giving him up. He's the best offensive player right now in the NBA, so I'm not giving him up. But, Westbrook, Harden. By the way, Harden, Chris Paul worked very well very quickly. If it's not for an injury to Chris Paul, they get to the finals and maybe win. So it just doesn't take LeBron AD, Joy and I, worked instantly. LeBron Wade, 20 games. Nothing gels in year 4. It doesn't work like that in the NBA. It doesn't, never has. Joel Klatt next, third.
The Gangster Chronicles is a weekly podcast hosted by former gangbanger and inmate James McDonald, rapper MC8, and myself, Norm Steele. Weekly we get together and have conversations with everyone from former gangsters, drug dealers, and bank robbers to police rappers and politicians. Gangster Chronicles podcast is a glimpse into a world where society is rarely allowed access. Nothing is ever scripted and it's 100% real. We don't glorify the gang, we simply educate and inform the world on what goes on in the streets of urban America. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
The Gangster Chronicles is a weekly podcast hosted by former gangbanger and inmate James McDonald, rapper MC8, and myself, Norm Steele. Weekly we get together and have conversations with everyone from former gangsters, drug dealers, and bank robbers to police rappers and politicians. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is a glimpse into a world where society is rarely allowed access. Nothing is ever scripted and it's 100% real. We don't glorify the gang, we simply educate and inform the world on what goes on in the streets of urban America. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Cody Koch here. You may know me from Vine, YouTube, or as the co-host of the Tiny Meat Gang podcast. But my brand new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, presented by Trojan Brand Condoms, is out right now. Here's a little preview from my chat with Tim Dillon. What do you seek out in a partner?
I want someone impressed that I'm on this show.
Yeah.
You did a podcast with Cody Ko. That's big. He's got 1 trillion gajillion followers on Ding Dong.
On TikTok.
You know, whatever it is.
On Ding Dong.
Zip Zop or whatever the kids are on.
My advice to you right now, go listen to my new podcast, The Pleasure Is Ours, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, here we go, an exciting hour number 2. Live in Los Angeles, this is the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. We're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. Joy and I are wearing red and blue. Didn't mean to. I'm a guy. What's available I put on. And we are not doing election coverage. By the way, I'm going to shout out to all the guys and women on the election coverage who have to use those touch boards, those touch screens, because I've done that before, and that's no day at the beach. That thing can go haywire. And that John King guy is doing stuff, and I'm like, that guy is worth his weight in gold.
I did not watch a second of election coverage. Yeah. I ate a giant plate of pasta and binged about 11 episodes of Schitt's Creek last night.
Well, that's funny show. Wife loves. Ann loves to. And, by the way, Ann at 4 o'clock, she never does this, says, I'm going to open a bottle of wine. And I said, why, darling? She's like, going to be a long night.
Yeah, I unfortunately ran out of red wine last night, which is a tragedy, and I was not going to leave my house, so I switched to a martini.
Those are good, too.
Yeah, I had a good night.
Did you see the #1 Google search? That was one of the top Google searches in America last night. This is funny. Is this great? Liquor store near me. I'm not joking.
It's a stressful time right now.
Of course it is. And listen, we're divided. I don't think some of this division is terrible. I think I like when half the country's this and half the country's that. I don't want to live in a country where everybody's on one side. I like the arguments, but I just don't.
We should be able to disagree.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we're past that point. It's divided. We can't disagree on anything. Although I think we can all agree I look good in red, and I'm not turning that over to anyone.
You look fantastic.
Thank you.
I like the glasses too. Very professional. Okay, before we get to Joel Klatt, so I do a Super Bowl bubble. I start about week 5, 6, 7, 8, and I've always done it the same way. I always believe there are 8 teams capable of winning the Super Bowl. Until this year. I don't. I eliminated 2-1 yesterday, Green Bay. They didn't do anything at the trading deadline. I've seen them play physical teams. Minnesota ran in them. Tampa ran in them. Last year it's the same team. They didn't address it in the draft. Here's my Super Bowl bubble. 4 teams I think can win the Super Bowl. Tampa, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Seattle. I'll put Green Bay, Baltimore, Tennessee on the fringes because I do think if they stayed really healthy and a Seattle fell apart physically, Tennessee, Mahomes gets dinged up. I think those teams are the next best. That's only 7 total.
You lost the Rams, too.
You can't get blown out every other game. So that's my Super Bowl bubble. I don't buy the Saints. I haven't all year, especially when it gets cold. They'll have to go on the road. They'll be a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 seed. They're not going to win in Philadelphia. So that's my Super Bowl bubble. And I will say this again. I'm not a real jealous person. You know, that's just not, I got my faults, but I'm not real jealous. But I would get, if I was in this industry and I thought I had at least as much or more talent than everybody else, and I never got support, I do here. I never got a guest booker, I do here. I never got a good co-host, I do. Or a great producer, Goulet. And I felt like, God, all my rivals, they always get all, and I don't. I'd be a little bitter. Little bitter. Aaron Rodgers, I don't blame him. He's looking at Brady, and Brady had a great defense his entire time in New England, and he goes to Tampa, and it's great. And Tom was in New England, they made deals, and Tampa makes deals, and they get him AB, and Aaron's like, can I just get a Will Fuller? Can I get a second-round pick for a linebacker? Like, I get a little bit of bitterness. This is why I've always said I hate the franchise tag for quarterbacks. I hate it. Aaron's trapped. He can't go anywhere. I do not like the franchise tag at all. I don't think it's fair that I worked my tail off in college. You get me for 4 years, and then you can keep me for 2 more if you're a lousy franchise. I hate it. Aaron Rodgers, after his first contract, by the end of it, should say, do I like my GM? Do I like my owner? No, I'm out. But I get a little resentment. I would get a little bit of it if I'm Aaron. I mean, listen, he lost to Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick had a loaded roster. He lost to Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo had a loaded roster. Like, he's lost Matt Ryan. He's better than Matt Ryan. Matt had an organization that would spend money and get picks, and so I get it. But my Super Bowl bubble this morning is 4 teams. Seattle, Tampa in the NFC, Pittsburgh, Kansas City. Because Green Bay didn't do anything at the trading deadline. All right, every week, this week I have a feeling there's an old saying, there's a term called eat crow. I rarely have to, but I'm not going to lie. The Harbaugh thing's not great for me right now. Or Joel Klatt. Let's bring him on, the voice of college football. Joel Klatt, Fox Sports. We are literally now, you've heard of Gilligan's Island, it's Harbaugh Island, and we're the last 2 on it.
And I think it's in my rearview mirror at this point.
Okay, so let's
that wasn't good Saturday.
Okay.
My goodness.
All right, we both like Mel Tucker. You played at Colorado. I thought he made him big and physical very quickly there.
Yeah, he toughened that program up.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. And then he immediately, I think, at Michigan State retained what they were under D'Antonio, which was a team that would rise to the occasion against Michigan. In large part, Mark D'Antonio built his whole reputation as a coach off of the fact that he beat Michigan.
Yeah.
And he beat them fairly consistently, and now Mel Tucker has done it in his very first
with somebody else's players.
And by the way, it wasn't that close, to be honest with you, because Michigan couldn't do any of the things that Michigan did well against Minnesota, and Michigan State played great football and had a great plan. They were attacking those corners. Rocky Lombardi, the quarterback, played pretty well. Ricky White on the outside, a true freshman wide receiver. He was sensational. And then a huge shout out to Antoine Simmons, the linebacker from Michigan State. Did you know that he played his high school football literally across the street from the big house? There's a high school right there, Pioneer High School. Those of you in Ann Arbor, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Recruit him?
He didn't really want to play at Michigan. And it came down to kind of Ohio State, maybe Michigan State, ends up in East Lansing. He's been a really good player, has played a ton of football for them, and as a senior in the big house, plays one of his best games, 11 tackles. Kudos to Antoine Simmons. That was a great performance.
I've been watching Pioneer High School football for years.
Have you? Interesting.
Okay, so let's ask this. So I heard this years ago. I'm going to give you a little sourcing. I have a labyrinth of sources.
Oh, I bet. I mean,
I literally have to say to GMs in the NFL, stop texting me.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I heard this a couple years ago about Harbaugh when he was in the NFL.
Okay.
And then I heard it from a friend of mine who knows Harbaugh really well and just happened to be, let's say, in the last 20 years on one of his staffs.
Okay.
Harbaugh holds fewer meetings than other people. He's really quirky. There's things he does well, but it's not like other programs. He doesn't coach it like Urban or Nick. And they were like, listen, it's a different thing. Our meetings aren't as long, blah, 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 blah. And so I look at Michigan and I think something's not working. They're too inconsistent. They haven't gotten the quarterback right yet, which I don't get. Michigan's a great school. But you tell me, there's something not working here. You tell me what it is inside the secret sauce that's not working. Is he too quirky as a guy?
Well, it's interesting you say that because it's really working exceptionally well outside of Michigan State, Ohio State, and bowl games.
Well, that's like saying I'm
I
great
understand
except
that.
when I'm on the air.
No, listen.
I got to be good on the air.
I understand that, and that's a huge issue. And I think Saturday's loss for Michigan was a low
horrible
point under Harbaugh.
Horrible, his worst loss.
In particular, with the way that Michigan State had, a coaching staff that came in late, a lot of new players. It does not look good. I will tell you this and I've said this on your program before. A lot of the hate that Harbaugh gets is deserved because a lot of people think, and his contract suggests, that they should be playing at the very top end of college football, the Ohio State end of college football, the Alabama end of college football, and they're just not that type of program.
They're not.
I've said this before, but if you're just looking for Michigan to get back to doing Michigan things, they're actually doing that. If you actually look at their history.
Except actually beating Michigan State, because they don't have to beat Ohio State.
That's true.
If they were beating Michigan State, just that,
they would be okay
with it.
And they would still be like, I wish we could beat Ohio State, but remember, Ohio State's on a historically great run. But just to give you some context of what I'm talking about, and this is not an excuse because they're underperforming right now, and that's not okay, right? And Jim understands that, and he understands that was a terrible loss. I'm sure of it. However, Michigan's won 12 football games one time in the history of their program. Once. And they shared a national championship because of it. Brian Griese, of course, and that great team that was undefeated in 12-0 under Lloyd Carr. Just to give you some context, Ohio State has won 12 games 8 times this decade.
It's a different level program.
It's a different level. They're recruiting at a different level. And right now, Michigan is not there, and that drives people insane because they felt like Harbaugh, with his salary, with his ability to recruit in particular early, that they were going to get to that level, and that's the expectation. If that's the expectation, then you're falling short, and that's frustrating for them. And I don't know how it's going to end there. I think that
they're not going to fire him this
I don't think that they would, but I wouldn't be shocked if he stepped away. I would not be surprised at all if in a matter of a few years Jim Harbaugh is not coaching anywhere and driving around the country in an RV. And I'm not joking. That's not being I'm not being sarcastic there. That's not a joke or a knock. I'm dead serious. I don't think that if it's not going to work at Michigan, Jim's not going to go anywhere else. He's going to drive around the country in RV. That's, again, not sarcastic.
Trust me, I'm on 2 bad segments from doing the same thing. Okay, so let's go. I'm actually excited for this. USC Arizona State, early game, 9 in the morning. I'm going to have my English muffin, my burnt English muffin, scrambled
Joy's
eggs.
Apparently going to be on her 3rd martini.
Yeah. So let me just say this.
Martini night?
Herm Edwards.
Hopefully not.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. It's going to be 9 a.m.
Herm Edwards has worked. They play real I'm going to tell you something. You may not watch Pac-12 football. Herm Edwards, they're the 2nd or 3rd best recruiting program right now in the Pac-12. I think Arizona State has a chance to win that game.
Yeah, I do too. Not that. Listen, I'm calling that game, so I don't want to get too overboard here, but that's a lot of points. I'm just saying. I've done a lot of games this year so far, and only one home team has won. Not covered or anything. Only one home team has won the game. That was Ohio State or Nebraska. Every other game that I've done, the road team has come in and win, and most of them multi-touchdown underdogs. And I think Arizona State's catching 10.5. That's the last I'll say. You know what I'm talking about, you guys out there. Okay, so Herm has worked, and think about it from this standpoint.
Why?
It's a great question. They understood that the point in college football is recruiting. That's number one. And within recruiting, there's really 2 elements that players care about. Championships in the NFL. Boom. Okay? And so everything they did and built was to create a scenario where it was going to mimic and feel like the NFL. I am the CEO. This is what we're going to do. Their meetings are NFL style of meetings. Their players that go to the league, like Brendan Ayuk, has had a lot of success early because he comes from a college program that feels like an NFL program. That's kind of how they operate, and that's why it's worked. And think about this: the juxtaposition. It was not the exact same day, but it was close. Where Kevin Sumlin and Herm Edwards were hired the same offseason. Okay, and everybody to a man were like, "Oh, that's a home run for Arizona. What is Arizona State doing?" And now you look up a few years later, and it's clear that Arizona State kind of won that hiring battle.
I'm gonna throw something at you. America, get ready for this one. The reason Herm works, people didn't think Pete Carroll was gonna work. People didn't think Herm's gonna work. This is why. In politics and in college football, can you deliver a message? What are you? When I look at Pete Carroll, USC was swimming, and Pete's like, competition Wednesday, compete every day, I'm going to change your life. It totally popped.
Yeah.
Herm, I'm going to get you to the NFL.
There you go. And think about it.
He is a message
wide
deliverer
receivers the last 2 years.
No, he can.
Benjamin goes to the NFL, gets drafted by the Cardinals. They're going to have some more players that get drafted. By the way, they have 2 true freshmen running backs that are going to play. Running backs are going to play Saturday. One of them, they got kind of right out from the nose of Ohio. Like, he was a 5-star, highly rated recruit in Ohio, and Arizona State gets him. You're like, what in the world? Well, let me tell you why. It's because they're selling the NFL at Arizona State, and it's working right now. That's going to be a great game, by the way. Those 2 teams are the best 2 teams in that division. And folks, I don't know if you've paid attention to college football, but right now, if the Pac-12 gets an undefeated team through their conference, they're going to go to the playoffs. So if I'm Arizona State and USC right now, I'm thinking, why not us? I know that sounds crazy, but why not us?
All right, can Clemson beat Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence?
I'm less concerned. I know this is going to sound like heresy. I'm less concerned about Lawrence than I am. They've got a couple of defensive players that have been out. Skolsky, who's kind of their defensive captain. I believe it's Tony Davis, one of their defensive linemen, probably their best defensive lineman, at least as it relates to a couple of the coaching staffs that have played them already.
By the way,
I've talked with.
True freshman quarterback. No big long camp.
And on the road against a big physical Notre Dame team. They're very big, right?
Yes.
And they can run it, and they can ball control you. They can play physical on the defensive side. They got length in the secondary. Now, if Trevor's playing, I clearly favor Clemson, and I think that's pretty obvious. But Notre Dame has got a great shot, and by the way, they might need this game desperately because remember, in the ACC, they're not doing divisions. This is going to be the best 2 winning percentages are going to play in the ACC championship game. That looks like it's going to be Notre Dame and Clemson, regardless of how this game winds up this week. Well, the playoff committee's not taking Notre Dame if they lose twice to Clemson. They're just not going to do it. So Notre Dame's only path to the playoff is beating Clemson at least once this year, and their best chance is clearly going to be at home with Lawrence.
What's the weather like?
I don't know, actually. I haven't seen it in South Bend.
I'm sure it's charming. It's November in Indiana.
I know it's supposed to be bad here in L.A. this weekend.
What do you mean bad?
Windy and rainy. 60 degrees.
Oh, I like Arizona State in the upset then.
Wow, interesting.
Okay, so what do we got there this weather weekend in South Bend?
Saturday, 70 degrees.
What is it?
Low of 50.
Oh, God, then Clemson will win.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be like 9 degrees and snowing. I'm like, that's a Notre Dame win.
Well, I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame wins that game, but like I said, look at those injuries on the defensive side for Clemson. I think those are going to be a bigger factor, in particular with Notre Dame's ability to run the ball and control the game with their offensive line.
All right, did you watch election coverage last night?
I did. I was flipping around. I was watching some film. I think I'm probably like most Americans, very eager for this to be.
Oh my God,
right?
Oh, I just want to wake up one day and not talk about presidents.
Sure.
Can I just go to the grocery store, go to Costco, get a big tub of mayonnaise, and sit there by myself and enjoy it?
A tub of mayonnaise. I tell you what.
Just have tuna fish sandwiches all day.
The dietary habits right now of what's going on this show are very interesting.
I just don't want to talk about presidents every day. I've done it for 4 years. I just want to go have tuna fish sandwiches, crackers, talk to my dogs, and pour a Heineken.
Well, you have to talk to your dogs after a tuna fish sandwich because that's the only people that will talk to you after a tuna fish sandwich. Am I right?
You're right, Joel Klatt.
I feel bad. All of you that wait every week for me to stuff Colin into like a locker or something like that didn't really happen today, so I apologize.
No, I mean, listen, we don't manufacture that.
I know, but it still disappoints me because I know there's so many people out there that just take such great happiness and joy, when I can come in here and body bag you for a while.
By the way, when you go on around the country and you talk to these very talented coaches, they scold you for talking to me like this.
False. This is a PolitiFact fact check false. This is a for Pinocchio claim that Colin just.
What do coaches say to you?
Every single person.
Now you're not
much less coach. I mean, this is.
What do they say?
Hey, keep giving Colin crap, man. Hold him to the fire, man. I love it when you stuff him into a locker. And I'm like, yeah, me too. I'm not by nature a bully. At least I hope not. Maybe some would disagree with that, but I do like bullying Colin.
It's not what my sources say. They say
sources.
I got a lot of them. I turn my phone off sometimes because they GMs in the NFL. Roger Goodell won't stop texting.
All the texts from the GMs that text me around the league. It's amazing.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you.
You as well. You as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, Joy. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
You bet.
Aqib Talib in about 20 minutes.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Extremely active. Brothers and sisters, you already know what it is. The Gangster Chronicles. The land. From Oregon all the way down to Mexico. To all my SA brothers and sisters, viva la raza.
The Gangster Chronicles is a weekly podcast hosted by former gangbanger and inmate James McDonald, rapper MC8, and myself, Norm Steele. Weekly we get together and have conversations with everyone from former gangsters, drug dealers, and bank robbers to police, rappers, and politicians. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is a glimpse into a world where society is rarely allowed access. Nothing is ever scripted and is 100% real. We don't glorify the gang, we simply educate and inform the world on what goes on in the streets of urban America. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Gangster Chronicles is brought to you by the PolitiFact Podcast Network.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Tomorrow, Aaron Rodgers leads the NFC North leading Packers against the 49ers. It all starts at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Fox NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
With Garoppolo, I'd take the Niners. Without him, I'll take Green Bay. It's important. Green Bay just lost. Chicago's not going anywhere. They're feisty. Good stuff. All right, let's not waste any time. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
There wasn't a whole lot going on at the trade deadline yesterday, but the Dolphins made a couple of moves. They traded wide receiver Isaiah Ford to the Patriots for a conditional 6th-round pick in 2022, and they acquired running back DeAndre Washington in a conditional 7th-round pick in 2021 from the Chiefs in exchange for a conditional 2021 6th-round pick. Now, at first glance, it would look like the Patriots were making a move to bolster their skill
It's a bunch
positions.
of phoniness. I think it's looking like they want you to think that they're still competing, but that guy's he's talented. He was a good 3rd-down receiver for Miami. He's talented, but I mean, again, he should be your number 4 receiver.
There's also, the Flores Belichick connection there, so there's a little movement of some pieces around.
Dolphins need some depth at running back.
Yes, their starting running back Myles Gaskin is expected to miss 3 games with an MCL sprain. DeAndre Washington had 3 carries for 5 yards, 1 reception, 2 yards. Only played in 1 game with the Chiefs this season, but as you mentioned, it's just to add a little depth there and make some moves around the trade deadline. So Jimmy Garoppolo is headed to the injured reserve list and could be done for the season after injuring his ankle again last weekend against the Seahawks, but Kyle Shanahan said he didn't have any second thoughts about bringing Jimmy G back too soon.
When you have those high ankle sprains, you re-injure him a lot. But it was a different way that he did it, so it's basically doing it all over again in a different way. So I don't regret bringing him back in any of the times, but he redid something in the Seattle game, and it was bad. He tried hard to come back, and I'm glad the docs want to let him because it ended up being worse than we thought.
Listen, everybody in this league plays hurt. I mean, if Jimmy probably pushed, he wanted to play.
This is not a Kevin Durant situation.
Right. Yeah.
This is the NFL. You're going to play through injuries that you probably shouldn't be doing any kind of physical activity on, and he is expected to miss 6 weeks with the high ankle sprain. He's gathering some other opinions while trying to determine if he needs surgery, but he's out, and essentially the 49ers season appears to be over. Now, they have Nick Mullins, so, it is still Shanahan's system, but Jimmy G is obviously better than him. That's why he's the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
And the division is the Rams are now going to be better, Arizona's better, and Seattle's way better, so it's over.
And in the NFC, you're not going to sneak your way in at this record at this point in the season without your starting quarterback. The 49ers also shut down their facility today after a positive COVID test. The game is obviously still scheduled for tomorrow. So, we were talking about this over the past couple weeks, that it looked like we reacted too soon to what was happening with San Francisco. But this is just a year that they're falling apart. That they're falling apart physically. Sometimes it happens. I don't think it's anything too dramatic to react to, but if you look more macro, what do you do with Jimmy G? Because there was already some questions coming into the season about Jimmy G, which I thought was a little bit exaggerated because they were just in the Super Bowl and one throw away from winning the Super Bowl. But I always struggle with that one play thing because it's kind of like, well, that's the play that the guy would make if you had the guy. Right? So it may seem small and kind of insignificant that he didn't make that play. Like, you were in the Super Bowl, you were just one play away, you did dominate the Chiefs for most of the game, but what do you do? What do you do with Jimmy G at this point? He's always injured. He wasn't really lauded like that to begin with.
I think they're gonna engineer some kind of move to get Sam Darnold. I really do. I think Sam Darnold's gonna be a 49er or Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's much more expensive, but I think there's gonna be a robust market for Sam Darnold, and I think the Colts are gonna lead it, and the Niners are gonna be second, and Washington's gonna be third. And if I'm Sam Darnold, I would much rather go to Kyle Shanahan and the Colts O-line than where he's currently at.
Yeah, and over Washington as well. I do think that Washington is trending in the right direction. They are ways off, obviously, from the 49ers.
He's a defensive coach. I want Frank Reich or Shanahan. I'll take an offensive coach.
I feel like Sam Darnold kind of fits more with the Colts. He feels like a Colts.
Tough guy.
Quarterback, yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
The San Francisco 49ers are a little bit of a glamorous franchise.
That's not who he is. He's a beach volleyball player. He was a linebacker for a while. I mean, Darnold's a tough guy. In fact, he did something last week. Oh, I would have scolded him. He ran just headlong into a couple of Chiefs defenders.
He's a very reckless player.
Yeah, like Sam. You're not a linebacker at Huntington Beach High or wherever you were. It's San Juan Capistrano.
You would not describe him as a finesse.
No.
Quarterback.
He is not a finesse quarterback.
He weirdly kind of reminds me of Carson Wentz in a lot of ways.
Yes, that's exactly what he runs. That's a good comp. He's a reckless, high ceiling, reckless. You're getting turnovers, and sometimes you're like, just slide.
Just get down, and he kind of gets down sort of clunky anyway.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
The potential to elevate a team.
But this guy
with him last
has
year.
an it quality. Physically, will make throws and plays. You're like, whoa. I mean, he beat Dallas and the Raiders. I think it was last year. And there were a couple of moments you're like, God, if Darnold had anything to work with.
Finally, Daryl Morey is the new president of basketball operations for the 76ers and could be looking into bringing a familiar face to the organization. Philly is reportedly expected to have interest in pursuing a trade for James Harden. The Rockets are currently not shopping their star, but Daryl Morey already making headlines. We thought he might step away from the game for a little bit. Nope, right over to Philadelphia.
Well,
I would love this move for Philadelphia.
Yeah, but what do I get in Houston? I'm giving you the best scorer in the game. You got to give me more than Ben Simmons.
No, they probably will. But I also think both of these organizations, while they have two stars, they've clearly reached a place where some kind of dramatic movement has to happen. It can't just be moving the coach out. Obviously, they need to make some moves, adjust what they have going on, because neither one of them can get over the hump with what they currently have. There's no denying that they both have talents. Both of these organizations have a lot of talent at the top, but it needs some restructuring. There's a reason why Daryl Morey left. There's a reason why the coaches are no longer there, right? They've reached a place where they need to redirect. So I don't think even if you didn't get enough for James Harden, that it would be the worst situation, because you kind of need to go in a new direction. Is this even going to happen? Who knows? the fact that this is even out there kind of tells me that these conversations are already being had.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm James Harden, that's not the worst situation for him.
Yeah.
I think it would. I actually believe it would work.
Oh no, I think he and Embiid would be great together.
And I think
Inside
the East
outside.
is going to start being really, really competitive next year.
Enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and we were it was Gottlieb actually. We were talking about this. It's like, does everybody understand this Darnold Trevor Lawrence jet thing is becoming a really big story? It's becoming. This is going to be a humongous, highly rated NFL draft. This could break records because Trevor Lawrence is great and Justin Fields is great. So you have two A+ guys, and the kid at North Dakota State. My guys tell me he's a very good prospect, B+, A-, whatever. So it's really interesting. So yesterday, Joe Douglas, the new GM of the Jets, somebody asked him about Sam Darnold in the future, and here's what he said.
Can you say for sure now that Sam will be your starting quarterback next year?
Look, I mean, we're trying to get through the next 8 games. I mean, again, my feeling on Sam hasn't changed. You know, we have to do a better job of surrounding him with talent. I have no problem saying that he is our best quarterback and our quarterback for the future.
Okay, so whether you believe that or not. So just to give you some perspective, you could get a haul for Trevor Lawrence if you kept Darnold. So right now the Jets, and I'm only going to count first 4 rounds, because GMs will tell you after the 4th round, there's a lot of finger crossing. And that's for the guys like Pete Carroll that are good with personnel. Like 5th round, great players generally, historically, aren't available in the 5th round. There's 1 or 2 guys every 5th round that's good. So, you know, in the NFL, a first-round guy should be a Pro Bowler. 2nd and 3rd should be starters really, really fast, immediately, really soon. And then a 4th-round guy is a little bit of a project, but should make the NFL. 5th round, your fingers crossed. But, you know, we've had a lot of good players in those rounds. So right now the Jets have 2 first-rounders, a 2nd-rounder, 2 thirds, and through the Giants, 1 pick in the 4th, potentially 2. So 2 in the 1st, 2 in the 3rd, 2 in the 4th, 1 in the 2nd, 7 picks in that top 4 round. It's a lot of players. The Jets could give up the number 1 pick to the Jags, who want him, and get the Jags 2 picks. So the Jets already have 2 first-round picks. They could get the Jags, they'd go down to 3, and get the Jags' 21st pick from the Rams. Without confusing you, the Jets could end up having, this is just this year in the 1st round, the 3rd pick, the 21st pick, and the 31st pick. That's just what you'd get for the 1st round. And if you start looking at what the Jets could get with that, to give you some sense of, we're going to keep Darnold and move, let's just go to the 1st round to simplify it. Right now, the number 3 pick would be Jamar Chase, a wide receiver, LSU. Receiver issue solved. 21st pick, Alex Leatherwood, tackle Alabama, who you could move inside. Offensive line, back-to-back years, first-round tackles. Probably issue solved. Number 31 pick, Darian Kendrick, cornerback Clemson, speculating, but he drops there. Cornerback, they need 1. Solved. So you could solve, and you're going to have the most cap space in the NFL. So I'm just saying, if you keep Darnold, if I just took the 1st round, you'd have 3 key starters and the most cap space in the NFL. I'm not counting the fact they'd have a 2nd, 2 thirds, 2 4, and they'd probably get another 1st round pick for next year. So keeping Darnold, you can get a haul. But I do think, as Peter Schrager said, boy, do you need to be able to sell something in this city, and they are just losing steam. There's not a lot to support and chase and market right now. It's Darnold and nonsense. So, you know, my gut feeling is they go get Trevor Lawrence. All right, Aqib Talib, one of my all-time favorite guests. Nobody keeps it more real than Aqib Talib. He's going to be joining me next halfway through the NFL season.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
This is Sammy J, and I have some exciting news to share. We are back for Season 2 of my podcast, Let's Be Real with Sammy J. Season 1 had some amazing guests, including YouTube sensation Liza Koshy and NBA All-Star Kevin Love.
Nothing robs us of more human potential than mental illness.
This season will have more revealing and unfiltered conversations with celebrities, influencers, activists, and athletes, including Anthony Ramos.
How do we dig deeper in what we say as artists if we aren't digging deeper in our own lives?
TikTok sensation Dixie D'Amelio.
This time last year,
I was on the bus to field hockey games. I didn't even do TikTok.
And to give back, my guests will also talk about a charity that's close to their hearts.
Come on, Sammy, doing all this important work in the world. I'm saying 17, man, come on.
Episode 1 launches November 10th. Listen to Let's Be Real with Sammy J on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, what's up? This is Adam Devine.
Anders Holm.
Blake Anderson.
And Kyle Newachuk. And you might recognize these sweet, sultry voices from the hit television program Workaholics. We're on a major hit motion picture, Game Over Man. Heard of it? If you haven't, check it out. It's on the flicks. And we were sitting around and we were bored in quarantine and we're always on these Zoom calls. And these dudes are all like, I miss this dude.
Yeah, I miss you guys.
It's true. I do miss you guys a lot.
I miss you guys so
Constantly.
much. So we thought, hey, you know what? Our conversations, this is important.
Totally.
These are important conversations we're having. And the world needs to hear it. So please, do yourself a favor and listen to This Is Important on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
RecTech, more than a grill, it's a lifestyle. Check it out, RecTech, RecTeq.com. Built by grillers for grillers. Smart grill technology. You can turn on the grill from your phone. Aqib Talib, in the history of the NFL, I mean, you can go back 50 years, 60 years in the NFL. He took 10 interceptions in for touchdowns. That's the fourth most in NFL history. He was the rare defensive playmaker. 35 career interceptions. Half the years he was in the NFL, he was voted to the Pro Bowl. Belichick loved him. Aqib Talib, former NFL star defensive back, is now joining us live. So, week 8. Here we are, week 8, Aqib. My kind of feeling is, right before Thanksgiving, what you see is what you get. We kind of know who's good, who's not. Were you ever on a team that in week 8 got significantly better or worse 2 months from now?
No, never. I feel like by November, you know what you got. You know if you're a good team. You know if you're a contender, or you know if you're working on next year. I can recall Bill in meetings saying that the football season starts in November. Like, this was when it really cranks up. The good teams are really trying to be good. The decent teams are trying to be a good team, and the bad teams are just getting ready for next year, man. The guys check out. So, no, what you see is what you get.
It's funny. I said this about Green Bay. They're like a convertible sports car. They look good in the summer and early fall, but once it gets cold, you got to put it away and get your SUV out. And Green Bay, to me, is kind of a finesse team. They play a certain way. I don't think you can win in the NFL against these Baltimores, Philadelphia, Seattle, Pete Carroll, the Steelers. It's physical football. Were you ever on a team that you thought, man, we're too soft. We are not physical enough. I think you either have that DNA on a team, or you do not. Did you ever play on a team that you thought was good, but not physical enough to win a Super Bowl?
I don't know if I played on bad teams before, but I don't know if us not being physical. I'm thinking of my Tampa teams, my New England teams, my Denver teams, and my Rams teams. I don't know if I ever was on a team that wasn't physical enough. I mean, we had some bad quarterbacks and some bad coaching, but me personally, I've never been on a team that wasn't physical enough. But it's possible, man. There's soft football teams out there, and when you play against soft football teams, you definitely can feel it. You can feel like these guys soft. They don't stand on aggression and violence out here on this field. So you can feel it when you play against those kind of teams.
You can. So you can tell. You can tell when you're playing a soft football team.
Definitely.
That's interesting. So Stefan Gilmore, I thought was going to get traded at the deadline. Like you, he's a playmaking corner. Many suspect he's past his prime. When you watch Stefan Gilmore, is he still elite in your opinion?
I think he's very elite. He's trying to backdoor a defensive MVP season. So, man, as players, man, we deal with pressure all the time, man. Pressure of taking care of our families, pressure of performing well on TV. And the more awards you win or the more money you make, that's just the more pressure that's put on you, the more eyes that's watching you. So,
You coming off the best season of your life, probably college, high school, any season you ever played in. He's coming off the best season of his life, so it's hard to follow that up, man. So I mean, and I don't think he's playing bad now. I think DK Metcalf had a pretty good game against him. Besides that, though, Gill is Gill right now. So I'm surprised no team didn't trade for him. I think it probably was a high asking price from New England because Bill knows what he has with Gill.
So you got traded about 8 years ago, Bucks to the Patriots at the trading deadline. So Antonio, you went to a good team, and they had stars, okay? So Antonio Brown now is going to a team, and they've got stars. So your first 2 weeks, Aqib, when you went to this star-studded, really good team in New England, is it weird? How do you ingratiate yourself to the guys? Like, is it a rough couple of weeks?
I don't think so. I'm a people person, Colin. So I think the locker room part took care of itself. I just went in there and I was me. And as far as on the field, you just want to show guys what type of player you is. So man, I probably my first 2 weeks of practice was real hard practice, a lot of film. I was out there by myself. I didn't have to worry about my kids or anything. So I just learned that playbook. I watched a bunch of tape, just watching the defense and seeing how the defense played. So man, I think it was like you got to prove yourself. You want to prove yourself to them group of guys. You want them guys to be able to believe in you. So that starts in practice. That starts in the meeting room. But you're gonna be yourself, man. As far as what type of person you are when you go in that locker room. If you're a quiet guy, you're gonna be a quiet guy. If you're a social guy, you're gonna talk to all the guys. So I mean, he's gonna fit right in. I think, man, he's a social guy. All the guys know him, and what they gonna love about him and respect about him is he's the hardest working player in the NFL. That's the bottom line is. That's what you can't take away from AB. He'll outwork any receiver you want to put in front of him. His workouts will go longer than any receivers in the NFL. So guys gonna love him and respect him for that.
Was Brady good to you when you first arrived in Foxborough?
He was great, man. He was great. He came, introduced himself in the locker room. I even thought I was gonna have some offense, Colin. I remember staying after practice, me, Tom, and Bill throwing back shoulder fades and corner routes. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have me a package. I was excited. So Tom, he took care of me, man. He always went out his way to come, you know what I'm saying, make sure I was good, make sure if I needed anything around the city, let him know. So man, he was super receiving, man, when I got to New England.
I love hearing that. So I don't know if Tua's gonna work. He's a little short. He doesn't run around a lot. I like my quarterbacks a little bigger, and if they are short, I like them to run. I'm just telling you, if you're small like Kyler, then you got to move.
You got to move.
What do you make it, Tua? Do you think it's going to work? What do you make of it?
I think he's a starter, man. He's a leader. I think at quarterback position, it starts with being a leader, man. It starts with guys believing in you, guys being able to, depend on you to win games. And it was bad. I won't say it was bad, but it was a weird game against the Rams. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to do much, so I know the coordinators kind of had a pamper on him. They like, we making plays on defense, we running punts back, we getting great field position. We don't have to do much, so he didn't have to do much. But I think that the playbook will open up a little bit more this week against Arizona. I think he could do it, man. If you play on a stage like Alabama and you win national championships and things like that, that's the telltale sign right there. You can't play for Alabama and be a starting quarterback, and that's like a mini NFL stage right there, that SEC. So if you can handle the pressure of the SEC and Alabama starting quarterback, I think you can handle. You could play in the NFL.
You said we had about a minute left. You said he had a certain personality. There's leadership. Can you sense that early from a quarterback? Like that's an it guy. Like he's a man's man.
That's an it guy. I think you can, man. You know right away. And Nick Saban knew. That's why he had him as a starting quarterback. So I think it kind of goes on colleges. If you're a guy who's at, a smaller college, and NFL guys just don't look at you as an it guy because you didn't make it to that stage. But I think once you make it to that SEC, Alabama, Florida State, Florida, Ohio State, once you make it to that stage, NFL guys know he's an it guy.
Great seeing you, bud. Aqib Talib. Nice having you on.
Appreciate it, Colin. It's always a pleasure, man.
12 NFL years, Pro Bowler for 5 of them. 10 picks taken back for touchdowns. Aqib Talib. He's one of my favorite people. I say that every time. I love Aqib. There's just no BS with him. Like, I tell you, everybody's BSing everybody. Your boss BSes you, your politicians BSing you. Can't trust polls, can't trust this. Aqib says something, I know it's real. I know he's telling me something that's real. He's not going to BS me. He's just giving it to me straight. There is something interesting about that, though. Like, I don't know how women judge women, but there is something about certain guys walk into a room and you kind of feel it. You can kind of feel
whether they're just telling the truth.
You can like he said too, has kind of got a leadership thing. There is something to be said for some guys. Just you look. There's a presence about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do women talk about presence?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a confidence thing. I don't know that it's. It depends on how it comes off. You know, if you're extremely confident in a room full of obviously insecure people, it might come off as arrogance.
Right.
If you're extremely confident in a room full of other confident people, like, you know, a room full of professional athletes, and you are supremely confident, that's important. That's what a leader is.
Oh, it's interesting. Keep to lead. Peter King last hour. A lot of NFL stuff. Not ready to give up? Want to feel more energized? Check out the site mdriveformen.com today. Supplement. You can eat right, work out, supplement every morning. Find your prime. Hour 3, Peter King next.
This is Fight Night, a new podcast from iHeartRadio.
They thought he'd robbed the deadliest man in this country. Guys who would not hesitate to blow your head off.
This story from Atlanta, Georgia, has been reported for 50 years. But now, for the first time, you're going to hear what really happened from the people who lived it. Listen and follow Fight Night on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company. And I'm Wheezy, former tech exec turned podcaster and comedy writer. We're the hosts of the Horrible Decisions podcast. Through laughter and education, we work to destigmatize kinks, normalize conversations that are taboo, you know, like sex, dating, relationships. Check us out every Monday. That's right. Don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, the #1 app for podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Have you ever wondered if Will Ferrell likes to wear his I voted sticker?
I'll even wear it until the next day.
Or what makes Stephanie Ruhle so passionate about voting?
It's about what kind of country, what kind of world do you want to live in?
Hi, I'm Holly Fry, and I'm hosting a new podcast called Why I'm Voting.
I realized my father had never participated in any election.
That's how democracy fails. Everyone assuming somebody else.
Why I'm Voting, a new podcast from iHeartRadio, available on the iHeartRadio app, at Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at FoxSportsRadio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Time to change your wireless provider. Pure Talk. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, 2 gigs of data. $20 a month, that's it. Grab your phone, dial pound 250, say Colin Coward. Pound 250, say Colin Coward. You'll be set. That'll get you 50% off the first month. Peter King, NBC Sports, 3-time Sports Writer of the Year. Trading deadline come and gone. I thought somebody would make a move on Stefan Gilmore. Maybe the Patriots asked too much. The price was a little rich. I thought the Raiders would actually go out and do something because they don't have a ton of pass rushing pressure, and they've shown they can beat the best teams. They beat the Saints, dominated them in the second half. They beat the Chiefs. I think they're going to get into the playoffs. I really do. I thought the win over the Browns was huge. It could be like a tie-breaking game for them. I thought they would go after it. Plus, the Raiders have done so well the first couple of years with Mayock in the draft. They're getting huge productivity from offensive guys. They're not paying them anything. But they didn't. Asking price from Belichick probably too high. And Peter King now joining me live. Football Morning in America. NBCSports.com. You know, Gilmore, Raiders were my landing spot, but the price was too rich. Were you surprised Green Bay didn't make a move? Although historically, trading deadlines in Green Bay don't go together much. Were you surprised at all they didn't make a little move in Green Bay?
Green Bay is an
arch-conservative franchise when it comes to, doing something at the trading deadline for major draft capital. So no, I'm not surprised at all. I would have been surprised if they would have, let's say, traded a 3 for Will Fuller, which is probably about what it would have taken. Look, Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, basically stated his ideas about the Green Bay Packers on draft day. Not only didn't he take a wide receiver in the first round, which was a desperately needed position, he didn't take a wide receiver at all. Not only didn't he draft a wide receiver, but he didn't buy even a halfway decent one in free agency. So I think it was unrealistic to think they were going to go wild in free agency. And many people who watch the Packers would say they would have been much better suited outbidding Tampa for Steve McClendon.
Yeah.
So he could provide some bulk in the interior of the defense, because that's where their big issue right now is. This game Thursday night, if it's played, by the way, this game Thursday night at San Francisco, anybody who's got JaMychal Hasty on their fantasy team, or if he's still available on waivers, go get him, because he's going to touch it about 27 times Thursday night.
Yeah. I was saying about, usually I call it my Super Bowl bubble. I always feel like there's about 8 teams that have to be serious considerations to be favored in the Super Bowl, and I don't know if the passing game of Baltimore is good enough. The defense is physical enough in Green Bay. I don't know what to make of Tennessee over the last 2 weeks, but I feel like Pittsburgh is the one team that has floored me. And I said this yesterday, is I've been critical of Mike Tomlin before, but you can't criticize. He has done more than enough. This defense is unbelievable. It's kind of on Big Ben. You have the weapons, Ben. You got to make plays in the playoffs. I'm not sure if Tomlin's had a better year. I thought they'd be an 8-8 football team. Well, what do you make of what they've done with new pieces, youth on defense, youth on the perimeter? What do you make of Tomlin this year?
I think what Mike Tomlin's done, as usual, is very, very good. I think he's a classic underrated head coach, and everybody says, well, you got Big Ben, you got a good defense. Well, it reminds me when people used to say to Pat Riley with the Lakers, whatever, 20 or 30 years ago, hey, all you got to do is roll the ball out there and let those guys play. That's a terrible thing to say about a head coach, because you have to figure out ways to motivate guys week in and week out. Everybody who's been through that program, with the exception probably of maybe of big names of James Harrison and Antonio Brown, will speak glowingly of what a great coach Mike Tomlin is. Now, about the Steelers, the reason why I thought they might be better than most of us really thought entering the season is that if Big Ben is healthy for 14 or 15 weeks, that receiving core, who he's still getting used to, Colin, is one of the best in football, especially now that Eric Ebron is holding down the tight end position. So to me, this has not surprised me all that much, and especially because when you have a top 3 defense and a quarterback who's got big weapons, in his receiver group, I don't think anything that they're doing is surprising.
What did your sources say about Antonio Brown to the Bucs? It's certainly not a position of need. What are your thoughts on that, and what does your people say?
I think it is a position of need, Colin. If you watch the New York Giants play the Bucs on Monday night, what you saw is, first of all, the number 1 or 2 receiver, Chris Godwin, out with a broken finger, and he's probably going to miss Sunday, but we'll see. Then Mike Evans is playing at about 80 or 85%. The underrated guy with the Bucs is Scotty Miller. Everybody thinks he's a little smurfy slot receiver. He's an outside receiver with 4.35 speed, and everybody doesn't know him because he went to Bowling Green and he's not had a great career to this point. Tom Brady loves Scotty Miller. Every time I looked at him the other night, he's limping. This was not some luxury pick for Bruce Arians. They needed a wide receiver. And look, people around the league, I think they believe that it's not going to be only coach that is going to be able to take Antonio Brown and keep him in line. But I've talked to 3 or 4 people who are huge on the Tom Brady factor with Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown doesn't fear or whatever Byron Leftwich or Bruce Arians, but he is consciously going to make sure that he doesn't let Tom Brady down because Brady is a guy who time and again has said, I want this guy on my team. The fact that he's living at Tom Brady's house, look, Antonio Brown needs a babysitter. Let's just be frank. And he's got one now and the greatest quarterback of all time.
I was saying this yesterday, the 3 things that will get you booted as a quarterback from a franchise. Doesn't mean you can't go somewhere else. But your coach, number 1, inconsistency. Number 2, your coach loses trust in you. And number 3 is you're never healthy. I look at Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm like, okay, got hurt in New England. First full year. Now he's hurt again. And Sam Darnold, Jets can say whatever they want. They're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. I think Darnold's going to have the Niners and the Colts, Chris Ballard and John Lynch. I know both like Darnold out of college. I think Garoppolo's done in San Francisco. At the end of last year, when he basically took the ball out of Garoppolo's hands, he had 8 pass attempts in a playoff game. I came out of that game and I saw that's Kirk Cousins and Zimmer. Like, he didn't want him to throw the football. I got to tell you, Peter, I think Garoppolo's done in San Francisco. I really do. Your thoughts?
I don't know if he is, but you'd be foolish to think he might not be. In the 80s, for 4 years, I covered Bill Parcells and the New York Giants. And I can hear this, I hear it in my sleep. He would say, all I can go by is what I see. And that right now, if Kyle Shanahan is being honest, if John Lynch is being honest, all they can go by is what they see. I don't know the numbers, but I'm just going to guess that by the end of this year, Jimmy Garoppolo will have missed 40% of the games since he's been a 49er. It's a guess, but it's probably not half, but it's close. And not only that, when he's played, about half the time he's played at a C level.
Yeah.
And last year, regardless of what the 49ers said in the playoffs, they basically, after he had his Steve Sachs, experience toward the end of the year, early in the playoffs, they went to the run. And he wasn't horrible in the Super Bowl, but he also had a chance to win it, and he didn't do it. So, again, they love Jimmy Garoppolo, the person, but I think right now they're unconvinced about him as a quarterback. And I agree with you. If I were Joe Douglas of the Jets, and I'm after the season, let's just say you hire Eric Bieniemy, okay? You go to Eric Bieniemy and you say, okay, this is your job, and Joe Douglas is going to work with you, but we're not picking anybody you don't want. Who do you want? Let's just say he wants Trevor Lawrence. Whatever, he might say, I want Justin Fields. I don't know. But he says that. That is when Joe Douglas calls John Lynch and says, John, I'm going to make this easy for you. I don't want anything this year. I want your one in 2022. That's what I want. That's what'll get this deal done. And if he won't do it, then you hang on to Sam Darnold and you wait for somebody who's either going to give a high 2 this year or a 1 in 2022, and you trade Sam Darnold. I think that's what they have to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft. Peter King, NBCSports.com, been a member of the board selection for Pro Football Hall of Fame since the early 90s, and appreciate you stopping by, Peter.
My pleasure, Colin. Have a great day.
Hey there, it's Mango, host of Part-Time Genius, co-founder of Mental Floss, and like many of you, I'm one of the 21 million people that have picked up gardening in the past 6 months. That's why I'm hosting the brand new podcast, Humans Growing Stuff, brought to you by iHeartMedia and your friends at Miracle Grow. Join me on a green adventure as we talk with experts, friends, and surprise guests, and hear what gardening means to them. Listen to Humans Growing Stuff on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you ever wondered if Will Ferrell likes to wear his I voted sticker?
I'll even wear it until the next day, just to mess with people.
Or what makes Stephanie Ruhle so passionate about voting?
It's super important. It's about what kind of country, what kind of world do you want to live in?
Hi, I'm Holly Fry, and I'm hosting a new podcast called Why I'm Voting. You'll hear from Chelsea Handler.
So my dad loves to talk about voting and talk about politics nonstop. And then I realized my father had never participated in any election.
And Jason Petty, also known as Propaganda.
That's how democracy fails. You know, that's how a system fails, is everyone assuming somebody else.
And other really interesting guests. Join me and all these amazing voters on Why I'm Voting, a new podcast from iHeartRadio, available on the iHeartRadio app, at Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen.
As they keep counting votes in America, Joy and I are wearing red and blue today, and it's totally out of the blue. We did not plan to do that. For all of those watching today and wondering if we have some sort of political statement, it's called I'm a Guy, and it was what was available on a chilly morning.
Yeah, I wanted to wear a sweater, and I like this one.
Enjoy Taylor with the news.
Heard on the news. This is the Herdline News.
The Cowboys will be on their fourth starting quarterback this season, Sunday, when they face the undefeated Steelers. I wonder what the line is on that, actually.
Well, it was 14, but what is it now? I mean, seriously, it's got to be like 18, 17 points. And
I think I'm taking the Steelers.
I wouldn't bet it. Fox bet. I wouldn't bet it. I stay away from those games. I don't like, because here's why. Because Pittsburgh could just rest guys.
Yeah. Well, Ben DiNucci has been benched after struggling in last week's loss to the Eagles, so Dallas will give both Garrett Gilbert and Cooper Rush reps with the first-string offense this week, and then decide which one will start.
Garrett Gilbert was the University of Texas quarterback.
He has completed 2 of 6 pass attempts for 40 yards in the NFL.
Right.
He last saw action in December 2019 with the Browns, and the Cowboys signed him off of the Browns practice squad in October. This is Cooper Rush's second stint with the Cowboys. He signed after Dak got injured. He's completed 1 of 3 pass attempts for 3 yards and has 13 rushing yards in the NFL. He last saw action with the Cowboys in 2019, but he has not thrown a pass in the league since 2017.
Pittsburgh favored by 13.5. I will not bet it, but I would take the Steelers.
Yeah, I would take the Steelers on the points if I was going to bet that. This will be the first time since 2015 the Cowboys have started 4 different quarterbacks in the same season. That was the year Tony Romo, Brandon Weeden, Matt Castle, and Kellen Moore were needed, and they finished 4-12. So it's kind of a bleak situation for the Cowboys, but that depends on how you look at it, because you do have Dak Prescott coming back.
Yeah, and you're gonna have a great pick.
You're gonna have a great pick, and you can restructure for the future, unless you are, the front office of the Dallas Cowboys, who still believe that there is value in winning the division this year. I do not. I think that's the Eagles, and you look forward to next year. So Antonio Brown is practicing with the Bucs for the first time today. He spoke to the media about how excited he is to have this opportunity.
Well, I'm super grateful to be here with such great organization, to be around some great players. Well, I took a lot of time off for the game, to reevaluate myself, to look within, to get a better perspective of myself, working on myself within and without, and be in this position. We followed the mission, and to get back on track, is what I'm here to do.
Well, if this doesn't work, it's over.
That's absolutely.
AB gets one more shot, because if it doesn't work with Tom Brady living in his house, then it's not you're done.
He's got a TB12 hat on.
Oh, I saw, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. This is the last stop for Antonio Brown. Again, I don't feel emotionally anyway about it. We in this business have to separate art from artist all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. I'll be interested in seeing how it works. I don't think it's going to work. Not as far as on the field. Based off of all the evidence that I have, it's not going to work. But I'm not rooting for it either way. I just want to see what happens. And this is definitely the last stop for him either way. So to his first start in the NFL didn't wow anyone, but Brian Flores said there's some things that they need to work on going forward. Offensive coordinator Chan Gailey agrees and thinks Tua just needs some time to reach his full potential.
The game starts to slow down for him because it's at a hectic pace the first time you go out there. You just got to keep working, timing with these guys, and Keep getting reps, and the more he understands, the more feel he gets with the receivers. I think he'll get better and better. He just needs to play.
I wanted to take a look at Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Tua's stats in their first start. Tua was the only one to win his first start, but as we know, it was kind of the rest of the team that got that win. Tua would admit that as well. But it's kind of interesting when you look at the number of passes, the attempts that Burrow and Herbert both attempted compared to Tua's. He was 12 of 22.
Herbert and Burrow, it's like, here's a playbook. We're going to go through it.
Just try everything. Burrow was 23 of 36. Justin Herbert was 22 of 33. The first downs are also interesting if you look at that, because the Dolphins had 8 first downs, Herbert 28, Burrow 19 in their first NFL start. And Burrow and Justin Herbert each had rushing touchdowns in their first NFL start, not passing touchdowns, which Tua had. It's just very interesting. Like, it very much shows they did not do a lot with Tua in his first start. They didn't have to.
Right.
That's not going to work every single time, as we know. Sometimes it's on the quarterback to carry the entire team throughout the entire game, which is not what we wanted to see, but you would have liked to see a little bit more from Tua. But to Changetti's point, and this is how I feel about it as well, it's his first NFL start, didn't need to. Why do it? Why force it? Why put him in situations where he may make mistakes and blow that game?
You
are still completely in it in that division,
and you're in a playoff chase. So let's not lose sight. Now they've won 3 straight games. Let's make sure everybody knows that.
Exactly. Like, this isn't Burrow or Herbert for that matter, but particularly Burrow, where you're not going to be in the playoff race. So let's make all these mistakes now. Let's show you on tape where you went wrong, air it out, and we can adjust. But I think these next 2 weeks will actually be really telling to see what they do with Tua, because the Rams were awful. So assuming that these next 2 weeks they actually play and they aren't turning the ball over at an unbelievable pace, we'll actually get to see more from Tua. This week is like a football heaven weekend for you.
I know.
You get Bucs Saints and you get Tua and Kyler Murray.
It's gonna be great. Can't wait. It's the NFL. I can always find joy in the NFL.
It's a soup weekend.
Oh yeah, soup and sweaters.
Soup
this
and
point
sweaters.
forward. Love it. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
We take the teams, 10, 15 teams in the NFL. We play playoff or takeoff. There's a lot of those Buffaloes and Miamis out there. My guess going forward, look at their schedule, look at their injuries, look at their play. Playoff or takeoff is coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
I knew they were going to kill him. Present FBI.
This is Fight Night, a new podcast from iHeartRadio. This is the story about 2 guys from opposite sides of the street. A hustler blamed for robbing the most dangerous gangsters in the country.
This is like issued a death warrant for me for something that I don't even know anything about.
And the cop who tried to save his life.
They thought he had robbed the deadliest man in this country. Guys who would not hesitate to blow your head off.
In 1970, Muhammad Ali triumphantly returned to the ring. At the hustlers' party that followed, gangsters from around the country were robbed of $1 million. This story from Atlanta, Georgia, has been reported for 50 years. But now, for the first time, you're going to hear what really happened from the people who lived it. Listen and follow Fight Night on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Rectex more than a grill, it's a lifestyle. RECTEQ.com. Built by grillers for grillers. They have a 6-year stainless steel. 6-year warranty. It's stainless steel. They're big. They're heavy. They last. All right, playoff or takeoff? So the staff's going to give me a bunch of teams, and I'll say, do they make the playoffs? I look at their schedule, their injuries, who's coming back, who's leaving, who's moved, who did you acquire? Joy, here we go.
And now, Colin will decide if a team is headed for the playoffs. Or taking off for vacation.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Please strap yourself in securely.
It's playoff or takeoff.
All right, Colin. Eagles, playoff or takeoff?
Playoffs? Okay, all their guys are getting healthy. Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, the tight end. Jason Peters, we're back this week. Lane Johnson, Miles Sanders, going to return after the bye. Then you have a pretty good team. That's a team that can compete. And they're 7-4-1 in their last 12. Here's an interesting thing. 9 of the Eagles' last 12 touchdowns have come from players promoted from the practice squad the last 2 years.
No practice squad more valuable in the league than the Philadelphia Eagles.
No question.
The Dallas Cowboys, playoff or takeoff?
Takeoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
Their offense is pathetic. They have 1 touchdown since Dak got hurt, and their defense is the worst in the league. I think the Jets would beat them if they played today. I think they're the worst team in the NFL. Because I think the Jets are at least giving you a little effort, and Darnold would make plays, so it's the worst team in the NFL.
Chicago Bears, playoff or takeoff?
As much as I like Matt Nagy, takeoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
Nick Foles has thrown a pick in 6 straight games. That's the longest streak in the NFL, so you're getting... He may be a better thrower of the football than Trubisky, but he makes a lot of mistakes. And they have the lowest scoring differential above any team 500 or better, meaning, they can win, but it's ugly. They kind of have one way to win, which generally tells you don't make the playoffs.
The Detroit Lions, playoff or takeoff?
Takeoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
I don't get this. I don't get that. Matt Patricia is 12-26-1. By the way, Kenny Galladay's hurt again. He's a huge weapon. When he's hurt, they don't win. 2 of their 3 wins have come against the Jags and the Falcons. I don't get it. A lot of people that I respect love Detroit, and I'm like, I don't think the players buy into the coach. I think their defense has been a problem, not just their offense, and they have a defensive head coach.
The Saints, playoff or takeoff?
Playoffs. A wild card team. Here's the good news. 1 of 2 teams in the NFL that have gone undefeated since week 4, and they've outgained people in that stretch by almost 400 yards. Michael Thomas coming back. Their schedule also really lightens up. So they face Tampa this weekend. That's a real game. But after that, it's the beat-up Niners, Falcons, Denver Falcons. They got a lot of W's here. They got Atlanta twice. They may be looking for a better draft spot, so they're going to make the playoffs.
The LA Rams, playoff or takeoff?
Playoff. Tough division. Here's the thing. They have the best second half point differential in the league. So they make adjustments at half. The Rams do a good job after half. They're out of games, they get into games. Secondly, they have the largest yardage differential in the NFL this year, almost 900 yards. So when you watch the Ram games, they move the ball. They make a lot of mistakes, even on Goff's bad days. They move it. So they tend to be a team that comes in, they adjust at half, they move the ball. When they don't have mistakes, they win. So it's a playoff team. I just don't think it's a playoff team that can win 2 games.
How about the Cardinals, playoff or takeoff?
Would love to embrace them, but in that division, it's going to be a takeoff. I think their schedule gets a little tougher now. They got the Dolphins, the Bills, the Seahawks coming up. Those are tough games. Most penalized team in the NFL, 8 penalties. They're inconsistent. They've also played the second easiest schedule in the NFL so far, so it's a little bit of a mirage. Schedule gets tougher, and, I think they're wildly entertaining. They're the opposite of the Bears. They're really fun to watch, but I think, like the Bears, there's ceilings on they got firepower but make too many mistakes.
Miami Dolphins, playoff or takeoff?
I think they'll fight. I'd probably go takeoff at this point. Again, the schedule gets interesting. At Arizona this weekend's not easy. Chargers and Broncos. I mean, even the Bengals game. You think, the Bengals game. Bengals can score. They're on a 3-game winning streak. But I have some limitations on what I see offensively with Tua.
I guess just give me more. I got to see more. But I think it's really close with them. Really close.
The Patriots, playoff or takeoff?
No, takeoff. They're 19 a game. They're a mess. I don't even think anybody disputes. It's a restructuring. You can call it what you want, rebooting, but tanking. You can call it whatever you want. They're not a viable team.
The Browns, playoff or takeoff?
Playoff. I like playoffs. Yeah, their schedule gets real easy. I mean, their only losses this year have come to the Raiders, the Ravens, and the Steelers. At least they're losing to good teams. And here's the other thing about their defense. They get turnovers and they get to the quarterback. They've created 14 turnovers this year. That's like tied for most in the NFL. So they pressure the quarterback. That means they get turnovers. So it's a good team. I don't think it's a great team. You can't rely on Baker in big spots. But and I thought last week was a bad look. But they're a playoff team.
The Raiders.
I think that game last week, I think they're a playoff team.
Playoffs?
I was wrong. Yeah, I think that game last week, that was a play. You go back and you go, oh, that got us into the playoffs. They also have an incredibly easy schedule going forward. They have the highest scoring drive efficiency in the NFL, meaning 53% of the time they get the ball, they score. They're explosive. They can go over the top. They can pound the football. They can eat the clock. We just saw last weekend they can win terribly ugly. So, I think the Raiders are, it's working. I thought that Gruden and Mike Mayock are working. And I like the idea that they can win multiple ways. Last week was just ugly, run the ball, be great on third down, not Raider football, but kind of Gruden football. 35-mile-an-hour wins, and they won. Playoff or takeoff. Joel Klatt, Peter Schrager, a lot of people stopped by today. Aqib, Talib, Peter King. They're going to count votes. By tonight, we could know. Probably tomorrow afternoon, we'll know. A lot of vote counting.
Just stay calm, whatever happens.
Yeah, I didn't sleep that great last night. I knew when Ann wanted a glass of wine at like 3:50. Not last in the morning, like it was,
in the afternoon, yeah.
She was like, "It's a lot."
It is a lot. It's a lot for everybody. It didn't have to be a lot, but this is where we are, so.
It's come down. By the way, people say the polling was terrible. It was off for a lot, but it said the West Coast and the Northeast are going to be blue. The Midwest and South will be red. The cities will be blue. The suburbs will be red. And it said it's going to come down to 5 states: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And it looks like right now it's come down to Michigan. So Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada. Arizona could tighten up, but it looks like it's come down to Michigan, my wife's birthplace. Michigan's a great state, so it's very, very tight.
Love Detroit.
Yeah. So I'm gonna sit back and watch. The polling was not a good day for polling. It's somewhat accurate, but not accurate. The second time they've kind of missed on Trump. The Trump shy voters.
There's reasons for that. Some people just don't want to say that. Well, they're voting for Trump.
And a lot of people see the polling as media.
Yes.
So the polling calls your house, and a lot of people think polling is media. They're all left. I'm gonna lie to them. And I get it. There's a lot of times the media drives me nuts. I get it. I totally listen. The media can look in the mirror once in a while, and
I look in the mirror all the time.
Oh, I'm very vain. I stare at it all day. That's why I got into a job with a camera. To look at myself. All right, everybody. Be safe. Take a deep breath. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have you ever wondered if Will Ferrell likes to wear his I voted sticker?
I'll even wear it until the next day.
Or what makes Stephanie Ruhle so passionate about voting?
It's about what kind of country, what kind of world do you want to live in?
Hi, I'm Holly Fry, and I'm hosting a new podcast called Why I'm Voting.
I realized my father had never participated in any election.
That's how democracy fails. Everyone assuming somebody else.
Why I'm Voting, a new podcast from iHeartRadio, available on the iHeartRadio app, at Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen.
The Gangster Chronicles is a weekly podcast hosted by former gangbanger and inmate James McDonald, rapper MC8, and myself, Norm Steele. Weekly, we get together and have conversations with everyone from former gangsters, drug dealers, and bank robbers to police rappers and politicians. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is a glimpse into a world where society is rarely allowed access. Nothing is ever scripted and is 100% real. We don't glorify the gang. We simply educate and inform the world on what goes on in the streets of urban America. The Gangster Chronicles podcast is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.